Thank you for joining me for this episode of Nextbiteoflife.com podcast. My name is Kem, and as usual, I'll be your host today. Today's episode is all about the Alcazar of Cordoba. I know in Spanish they say Alcazar, like they don't say Z. It's more of an S, so it's Alcazar of Cordoba. It's actually known by the Spanish name of Alcazar de los Reyes Cristianos, which means the Alcazar of the Christian monarchs. But for today's purposes and throughout the podcast, I'll just say the Alcazar. And I'm sorry to be pronouncing it in the English way, but I really can't say Alcazar. I can't remember to say that all the time. The location of the Alcazar is quite close to the La Mezquita, which I talked about last week. It's the Grand Mosque that's close to the Guadalquivir River, which is the site of the Roman bridge in Cordoba. We almost missed going to this place because I didn't think it was going to be as nice as the one in Sevilla, and I was pleasantly surprised. We had originally gone there on Sunday, and they closed at 2:30, so there were a lot of disappointed people outside of the gates when we got there about 3 o'clock. We went back. They closed on Mondays. We went back on Tuesday morning, and we were pleasantly surprised, and we actually got in for free because they were just setting up, and the guy at the window just decided to give us free tickets. So that was pretty nice of him, and we saved €9 this way. So it was a good thing. The only bad thing about it was that we didn't take any pamphlets because they didn't have any laid out. So we missed a couple of things during our visit that we would ordinarily have visited. It's definitely worth a visit to the Alcazar because even though you might have been to the one in Sevilla or maybe even gone to the Alhambra in Granada, you'll still be very impressed with this palace and fortress. It's built in a square, and there are 4 towers in each corner. There's only 3 surviving ones. There's the Tower of the Doves, Tower of the Lion, and then there's the Inquisition Tower, which is the one that we went up. And the last one, I think, is called Tower of the Doves or something. Anyway, that one is closed for renovation, so we couldn't have gone in. The Alcazar used to be the royal residence of Queen Isabella I and King Ferdinand, and they ruled with an iron fist from this place. It was originally built in 1328, if history serves me right, if I remember what I learned. It was built by King Alfonso the First, and before that, it was under the Visigoth rule, and it was a fortress in that time. And then in the last episode, I had told you about Abd al-Rahman, who fled to Cordoba, and this was another thing that he had built. So it was basically under Muslim rule. It was a caliphate. It was part of the Caliphate of Cordoba, and it was used as their palace at that time. And then once the Christians took over, they also made some renovations to the fortress, and it stands the way they kind of envisioned it right up till now. It's been used as a base. Napoleon had his garrison there with his troops in 1810. In 1821, the Alcazar was used as a prison, and I was surprised to learn, because I had thought that I knew where the Spanish Inquisition was held, but it was really pleasantly surprising to me to find out that the Spanish Inquisition over the 300 years was actually based out of the Alcazar of Cordoba. So there was a lot of torture and pain in this place. And King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were obviously very responsible for that part. It was their seat of government, and they planned a whole lot of invasions, including the invasion of Granada, right from the Alcazar of Cordoba. So there's a lot of really interesting history. When you first walk into the Alcazar, there's two ways to go. You can go straight ahead and go through, and that will lead you to the gardens. We went to the left, which houses the Hall of Mosaics. It's a very pretty place, and they have like a lot of old mosaics that they were able to rescue, or they've been around for hundreds of years, hanging up on the walls, and they're all in really good shape. If you go to the website, nextbiteoflife.com, you can see the pictures, as usual, that go with this podcast. And so you'll be able to see what some of the mosaics that I'm talking about look like. Really great shape. Absolutely wonderful. I would still love to have them now. If you look at from the balcony of the hall, which used to be a chapel when it was first built, and then it became a room for the Inquisition, and now they use it only for ceremonies. But if you look up from the balcony, you first see this little garden that has a pond, and I actually thought that was the main garden of the place, and it was very small. I thought, oh, it's so cute. It's not like Sevilla, but it's pretty cute. Little did I know that there was actually a much bigger garden than I thought. And if you look through the second balcony, you see the ancient ruins of like the Arabic baths that used to be there. And it's all like, everything is just completely gone, and it was gutted. And it used to be the place, like I said, of the baths, but they later demolished it and made prison cells and torture rooms during the Inquisition. So these people were very busy, and they took something of beauty and turned it into something pretty ugly. Going down from there, we could have gone on to see the relics of the baths, the way they stand now. But I didn't know. At that point, I assumed that was the ruins that we were seeing was just it, as far as the baths were. So we didn't go further, and that was an oversight on my part, because there are some parts of the bath that were saved, and you could still see some of the rooms, the hot room, the cold room, and the reception room, but we missed that. So I think it calls for a return visit. Apart from the balconies, there are also some relics, like there is a Roman sarcophagus from like the 3rd century, which really is in awesome shape. And there are carvings on it of like dead people waiting to go into the underworld, and the door is slightly ajar, they're waiting their turn. And it's made of marble, and it's just beautiful. We have a picture of it up on the website, so make sure you check that out. There are also rooms with other artifacts like vases, and it's quite interesting to walk through it. You see like what a typical office looked like, and it looked like the seats from like the Spanish Inquisition were still there. So we were pretty awed by that. After we were done with the building, which the Hall of Mosaics is housed in the Inquisition Tower, we went out and we walked up to see, up the stairs, because we wanted to get a view from the top. And I only went halfway, and Federico went all the way to the top. And he motioned, and he kept calling me and wanted me to come up. And I finally did, and it was amazing, the view from up there. You get an overview of the gardens, which is immense. It's like 55,000 square meters, I think they said it was. And it's just stunning. There's so many ponds and fountains, and, they got the water from the river, which was close by. And you see the Roman bridge from the top, and you're just thinking, wow. And you look over, and you see the other towers. And it's just an amazing place with an amazing view and such awesome history. And we were just stunned by it. And I'm so glad that we went. It's definitely worth it. I liked it better than the one in Sevilla, to tell you the truth. I really had no idea there was so much history behind this Alcazar. I mean, I keep forgetting just how much of an important part of Roman Roman history that it was. I mean, don't forget that there were two Roman emperors that were born in the Andalusia region of Santa Ponce and I think Cordoba. Emperor Hadrian, and I forget the other one's name. But anyway, so these were very important places. And so the history is just mind-boggling. I walked through like the Hall of Mosaics, like going through all the chairs because I was hoping that, at some point in time, that Isabella or Ferdinand actually walked in the same spot that I walked in, which, when you think about it, is just amazing. Later on, we found, like when we were going up the stairs, which are very steep, by the way, so just be prepared. I was wondering there were some scratches and some writings on the walls in the covered areas, and then you go up the stairs, and then there's like an open space, and obviously the fortress, the guards were throwing their arrows or whatever else from there, but it was also the place where they used to execute the prisoners, during the Inquisition. So it was. I'm glad I didn't know about it before we climbed up. It was only later on that I found out that in the very space that I was at, people were actually killed and hung there. And that's just amazing. So it's a little part of history a little part of living history that you just want to just embrace. And, it was a horrible thing that happened in the past, but it is history, and hopefully we'll learn from it, but I don't think so. Looking back upon the 300 years that the Inquisition took place, starting from Isabella and Ferdinand, you realize that the tower was where the headquarters were. This was where they plotted like the downfall of everybody. It was also the place where they had the plans for invading Granada at that point. And the whole purpose, from what I gather from the Inquisition, was just a way to make sure that all the riches of the people that weren't Catholic were passed on to the Catholics. So it was basically, the Inquisition was basically just a ruse. They forced the bishop and the pope or whoever it was to give them permission to actually take over people's lives and accuse them without really any evidence. And it's a horrible part of history. It's just absolutely amazing to me. I mean, you think these things are still going on. So like the rich people who are Protestants or Jewish or what have you were made to confess again, crimes against the Catholic seat, and you wonder how many people were actually coerced into confessing, because some of the torture instruments and the ways that they tortured people, I would probably have confessed to pretty much anything that anybody asked me to. I discovered later that there were 3 forms of torture that they would use on the prisoners. And the first one was called the garucha. And that's suspending somebody from the ceiling with their hands tied at the wrists and, they're held up, hanging. The second form was called the toka, which is pretty much the precursor of like the waterboarding that they do nowadays. They stuff cloth down somebody's mouth and they trickle water so you get the sensation that you're drowning. And the third one was called the potro. And that's the rack method that you see pretty much in all old movies and everything, where they strip you to the rack and stretch you out. That was like the third one. But the most famous one was the toka, and that's what they used to use. And you think, if somebody does that to you, you would pretty much say whatever they wanted you to do, or say whatever they were accusing you of. Anything just to stop the the pain. I read somewhere that during the Inquisition they were not allowed to draw blood, so that kind of made sense. Where the things that they did, I mean, hanging, yeah, you don't draw blood, but you're still dead. But what are you gonna do? Anyway, the most beautiful part of the whole Alcazar was the gardens. It's absolutely breathtaking, and you will be doing yourself a disfavor if you don't go and climb up the stairs and watch from above. The pictures we have captures a little bit. You can get an idea of what it looks like, but you really have to be there. And so I hope you get a chance to visit and you look at it, and they're just stunning. They are just stunning. You can understand why, like shows like the Game of Thrones, choose it to film. It was quite funny because when we were up top, there was a school bus that pulled up, and it was filled with high school students that were French. And you heard the teacher tell them something, and all the kids piled out. And instead of going into the fortress to try and see things, they just pretty much all hung out by the ponds and did nothing but check their cell phone and talk to each other and take selfies. And they didn't, we saw 2 kids out of like 100 come up the stairs, and when they got up and they saw the view, they were yelling from the top for their friends to come up. But it was so far down, nobody could really hear them because, like Federico said, the view was so good that it would have been really sad to miss it. But, these kids don't know what they're missing, of course. It's so much more important to hang out and chill and not do anything that had to do, and not do anything that had to do with history or learn anything new. The ponds in the gardens are just gorgeous. They're like big fish, and it's funny because the fish seem to follow you. Like when you go, it seems like the fish are following you wherever you go. And there are tons of them, and they were just, it's just stunning. Like I can't tell you how much I really enjoyed hanging around the gardens, and their benches. You can just sit and take the load off and watch people go by. There's several statues all around the gardens. There's one of Isabella and Ferdinand, and they're facing Christopher Columbus, because this was also, they had a reception for him actually here. This was one of this was the place where they plotted out him going across the ocean and discovering a new world, and that, this supplied him with the 3 boats or ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and I forgot what the last name was. The Santa Maria. That's the name. That this was where they gave him the okay to go ahead and go off and discover the new land, because he had been turned down by the Portuguese. And so imagine that. So the statue's there, and it was actually funny because we couldn't decipher which one was Queen Isabella and which one was the guy, because they both kind of look alike. The men look pretty effeminate in those days. So it was fun trying to figure out which one was which one. And like I said, Napoleon was also there. So imagine Napoleon, the Queen. And during the Roman rule, the Alcazar was also used as a customs house. And one of the people assigned to do like financial things in the name of the Roman people was Julius Caesar. So, I mean, supposedly he planted a tree, one of the trees, because that was one of his duties also, to take care of the grounds or something. So, have a good time wandering around and see if you can find the plaque of Julius Caesar. We didn't find it, but we didn't walk long enough, I guess, because it's pretty big and it's pretty long. We were there for about 3 hours, and I think if you want to go, you want to leave yourself 4 or 5 hours to really see everything. We also didn't go to the royal stables. In the first picture on the website, you can see a view from the top, and to the right of the picture, there is a picture of the stables, like the training and the open training ground, and you can see that. But we missed the UNESCO Heritage Site part, which is like a long hallway with all this arches, and it just looks beautiful from the pictures. And I'm so sorry that we missed it. But the good thing for us, at least the lucky thing, is that we're so close to Cordoba. It's about 2 hours drive from here, that we could still go and check it out. So for that, I feel really happy that I'll get to see the Arabic bath, the hammams, as it's called, at some point. The opening hours of the Alcazar, they're closed on Mondays, and they have winter hours from 8:30 in the morning till 8:45 in the evening. In the summertime, they open from 8:30 in the morning till 3 p.m. On Sundays, they open 8:30, but they close at 2:30. The last person is let in a half an hour before it closes. So you need to get there early if you want to really see anything. The admission price is $4.50 for adults. If you're under 14, it's free. And like I said, you want to leave yourself some time to really look at this gardens and enjoy the view from the top. And it's an amazing place to visit. And I hope that you get a chance to do it. And Spain is just fascinating for its history, and we're really enjoying our time here. Well, that's it for this episode of Next Bite of Life podcast. I'm so glad you joined me. Once again, please check out the website and see the post about the Alcazar, which is called Historic Alcazar of Cordoba. Good enough for Isabella and Ferdinand. And you can check out the pictures that go along with this podcast. And I hope you like them. Anyway, as usual, I hope you contact us if you have anything to add to our podcast, if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions for us. And starting next week, hopefully, we should have podcasts with interviews with expats. So people living all over the world that have made a decision to either leave the U.S. or leave their country, the normal country of residence, and now live somewhere else, and they have adventures and things to share, We'll have our very first guest, so I hope you join us for that. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and I hope to talk to you, I hope to talk at you, I guess, the next time. Have a good day.